What a game. Fight to the finish all the way, and it was won at the free throw line. We're going to talk about this when James Harden coming up clutch as we welcome you to Sixers Postgame Live, brought to you by Cura Auto Insurance. Amy Fiddle, Jim Lina, Mark Jackson. And we were talking, it was 9 minutes ago, Sixers were up 14, thinking, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead and start playing that song. Not so fast. It was a pound for pound, shot for shot, battle to the finish, Jim.
Yeah, it was, Amy. I had to be honest. I would have put this kind of in the trunk prematurely. Little did I realize, and it coincided with Ben Simmons going out of the game. And at that stage, the Nets offense really picked up, and Seth Curry, he was tremendous in the back part of that fourth quarter to make this a real barn burner.
Well, to your point, we'll talk about that coming up, because the Sixers, they were up by 14, and Ben Simmons left. And there you go, just turned like that. But James Harden was not going to let that happen. He is our Colonial Nissan game changer. And Harden, we saw Kyrie do crazy stuff, but Harden was answering him. Kyrie gets a bucket, Harden hits a three. Step back threes, especially in the fourth quarter. For this guy to come up like this when the Sixers needed to have a closer on this night, Mark.
Absolutely. You know it's personal, Amy. You know, there's no personal thing going on. But he's able to answer and get it done when it counted, and that's crunch time.
So, Jim, when you're watching James Harden, there's his signature step back. I mean, it's become really the move that he is known for. But he just seems like a cool customer out there when the game's on the line.
As cool as there is, Aim. You saw that first three that you saw there on those highlights. The game was tied at 120. So he made 2 threes right there in the guts of the game. I really do feel, Aim, that James, not only does he flourish in those situations, he looks forward, to being the guy. He's got the ball in his hands. He's going to be able to facilitate for somebody else. And if he has space, he's going to do things like that.
Let's check in now with James Harden and Taryn Hatchett.
Well, James, that Nets team made a couple of pushes quite a few times, so you guys were able to withstand it, just like you've done so many times throughout this season. What is it about this team that you're able to persevere through these types of games now?
We find ways to win. I think we kind of know who we are individually and as a unit, and we play together. No matter how well things are going, how bad things are going, we fight to the end. So even without, KD, they're still a really good team. They've been playing extremely well, so that's a good win for us.
You guys came off of a 5-game sweep on the road to a game that had quite a bit of fan participation. I would say, what was it like? How would you describe it in here tonight with this crowd against that opponent?
Honestly, man, they bring it every night. You know what I mean? And they got our backs. So tonight was a little bit of different energy, but for us, it's just focus on what's important, and that's doing whatever it takes to win the game. So I'm proud of the guys for that.
James, thank you very much, and congratulations.
I mean, Harden, when you're thinking about what he likes to do, he likes this role. I'm not going to say he likes to be the villain. I'm not going to go that far, Jackson. But I think that he does relish it a little bit. He knows the fans are with him. He sees that Nets jersey on the other side. We know how it went down. He seemed to enjoy, especially the fourth quarter, just maybe a little bit more.
I mean, that's what he does,
Yeah.
though. Great players like the moment. And this was the moment for your team. So it's personal as well as professional. We get the win. That's all that counts.
It was 116-102 with 8:57. We were up on the demo set telling you to come in for the post-game show and how Tyrese Maxey had been doing. And then it really flipped. You had guys like Kyrie obviously take over for the Nets. Seth Curry, we know what he can do. He had probably one of his best games in a Nets uniform. That is a challenge when you have a guy like Joel Embiid, Mark, that's not maybe doing as much as he normally does. How big was this as a team win, in your opinion?
A great team win versus, we spoke about pregame. That's why you got to watch pregame show. How the team hasn't played against the higher echelon of East contenders, and the Nets is definitely one. They've won in some games without KD. They're still a very good team. The guys got stepping up, but we won the game tonight, and I think we could say, well, we haven't played against whoever. We played the teams that's put forth in front of us, and the most important thing is, we've had some slip-ups early in the year. We haven't beat certain teams that weren't necessarily great teams, but we stepped up tonight, and I see progression the entire way.
Jim, it's big when you have a team surrounding your superstar like Joel Embiid on a night where he's maybe a little bit off. We know he was questionable. It was a game-time decision dealing with that left foot soreness. He did not play in the last game of the road trip, so he'd had 5 days off. He was perfect from the free throw line, but he didn't have a great shooting night. How big is it for the team to get the confidence that they know they can win games like this
Well, you just heard what James Harden said, and I think we talked about it a little bit pregame, Aim, that this team, that's what they're improving at for me. They're inventing ways to win games. And that's what top teams do. You know, you're not always going to have, you know, whether it's your best shooting game, you might be a little, like this game, defensively, it was not the Sixers' best defensive game. If you look at those net numbers, they shot 60% to the nets from the field. But the Sixers' offense was absolutely dominating. They took great care of the ball. And, oh, by the way, what'd they shoot? Some ridiculous number from the foul line. 30.
Oh, there was 97%.
Okay, 35 for 36 from the foul line. So in a close game like this, tied at 120, they pick a night like that to make all but one free throw. That's what the top teams do. They invent ways to win games.
Yeah.
We wondered if this would be a high-scoring game. It was. It's the first time the Sixers have been in a game where they and their opponents scored 130 or more since January of 2 years ago.
Wow.
That's so, I mean, this is just an absolute slugfest, and it was a pleasure to watch. We're so excited that you're joining us. We got to check out, though, our stargazing brought to you by Get Covered New Jersey. It was a big offensive effort from a couple of guys out there. We mentioned Tyrese Maxey, we mentioned Kyrie Irving. These are the guys that you know when the lights sometimes are shining the brightest, they come to play. Maxey, I don't know that we knew that until maybe towards the end of last year, parts of last year, but this year he's taken really full advantage of that.
Absolutely, Amy. You know, when he stepped up to the plate last year, from the beginning of the season, he was playing phenomenal, but then he got better with time. He's like, oh, it's a fluke. Oh, he can't keep it going. Like, oh, this is really him. And he's backing it up again with another monstrous season, having a little slight foot injury or an injury early in the year, but he's actually bounced back and has once again shown that he's the real deal.
Yeah, Jimmy, you saw him have a little pep in his step after that one. But he seemed, I mean, he's coming off that great game, obviously against the Kings, where he had 21 was 32 in the second half, and he picked up right where he left off.
Yeah, another, 6 3-point night for him. He has developed, Aim. I mean, it's no secret at this stage, one of the top 3-point shooters in this league. But I tell you what really has, as I watch he and Sam Cassell work down on that court pregame, and then you watch those James Harden-like step-back moves, whether he's going directly away from the basket or that one side stepper tonight. His technique to get that shot off has improved so dramatically. Credit to Sam as the coach, and credit to Tyrese for buying in.
Yeah, Maxey, 57% from the field. He had 27 points. Of course, we mentioned all the free throw shooting, everybody doing their part in that one. But you see the evolution of his game. He's been coming off the bench now. This is the new lineup that Doc Rivers has been putting out there. Do you like him, Mark, with this second unit? Because that was kind of one of the questions we had at times this season. Maybe they needed a starter type to be in that second unit to give them a little bit more stabilization.
I like it, Amy.
Yeah.
I like it. And then the second unit is made to be built around a guy who's a scorer. Like George Niang, who's our guy. You know we love him. He feeds off somebody being aggressive and him finding ways to find a gap in an offense where he can even get a shot off. You come running at him, which you have to. Then he's going by you, creating opportunities at the rim. Shake Milton's another complimentary scorer. This team, this second unit, I'm going to say it now because that's what it looked like they're headed. With Maxey in this second unit, it looks like this 76 team is the most complete team in the league.
Yeah, that's another question. I mean, when you're looking at the evolution of this Sixers team, you have to go back to when Joel Embiid first started here and how they've kind of built the team around him. Going back to the Jimmy Butler year, which he was only here obviously a little less than half the year, this might be the most complete team, even more so than that one.
Yes.
Because, Jim, you see up and down when that second unit comes in. Yes, there's a drop-off, but it's not a dramatic drop-off.
Yeah, well, if you put Maxey with that second unit, Mark makes a good point there, Aim. I mean, this guy he's just, not only is he like obviously a high-level player, but he brings an element of energy to the game. I know that's a phrase we bandy around a lot, but this guy, his style of play is contagious, and I think the other players feed off him.
And the title of this graphic is Instant Offense. That is what he provides. As soon as he comes in, and maybe that's why, even though he is a starter in talent and mentality, when he comes off the bench, he has that, all right, I need to give them instant offense because I'm here to play and I'm here to provide that. Do you think that that's a switch that he turns on, Mark? How does he have that? Because he scores in spurts when he gets out there.
Well, no, that was the thing for me last season, Amy, is I thought he took too many breaks in a flow of a game where he wouldn't want to become part of the flow, and then he would just say, okay, y'all do what y'all, I'm going to go for 3 or 4 quick buckets. But this year, he seemed to be in the flow. He seemed to have more fresh legs, and his confidence is at an all-time high. I don't care what you're doing in life. If your confidence is not up there, your body and your game won't match it. And his confidence is way hovering around where his game is, and I think his game is starting to catch up.
Well, Tyrese Maxey, of course, the reason we saw him burst onto the scene last season was because Ben Simmons was here, and then he wasn't here, and that was the whole thing. But how could we not talk about, just mention Ben Simmons? The only mention we've had of him so far is that he left the game with 9 minutes to go, and then you saw the Nets almost win this one. So let's give you his line real quick. He had 12 points, which is almost double his season average, and 5 and 5. This is something we talked about. Oh, and most importantly, a -16, Mark Jackson, a -16. Is he this guy now? I'm not going to harp on Ben Simmons. He is who he is. But is this him?
Is this Ben Simmons? I don't think it is. I think Ben is dealing with something that's holding him back mentally. And with that being said, I think the Nets, as well as himself, is hoping he'll come out of it.
Yeah.
I think he's capable of giving him what he's doing. His numbers does not reflect the kind of basketball player he's been for the Philadelphia 76ers in the past. Do our people say, oh, well, this is who he is now? No, this is not Ben. I think he's still dealing with something mentally that's preventing him from really flourishing in the game of basketball, which means that's his job, that's his career, so it maybe bother him in the game of life. And I hopefully believe, I believe that eventually he will come out of this. I do.
He was a game worse, -16. No one else had that kind of number. We saw him, he did make some free throws, so no one got chicken on Ben Simmons' watch in this one. And he did have 12 points, and he averages 7.5. But this is a guy that, you know, there was so much praise for him here in Philadelphia. And is it hard to see him like this now, Jim?
A little bit for me, Aim, yeah. Yeah, and it's, in a sense, I mean, I'll say it the way I feel it. It's inexplicable. In that, you know, if you go back to think at Ben when he was, you know, getting ready to go play in an all-star game, he played a totally different style than what you're seeing now. You know, getting a rebound, busting a ball the length of the court. You know, people they didn't like the idea how he drove the lane and got in the air and then threw it back out to the three-point line, you know, for open shooters. You don't see that kind of dynamic play from him. So, yeah, something is kind of restricting him like this. Yeah.
Something's handcuffing him. But I think that we got to go with what the soccer folk would call a nutmeg. Pass it right between a leaping Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid finishing. James Harden, he had a lot of pretty assists. I don't know if there's one prettier than this one, though, Mark.
Absolutely, man. This, once again, Amy, he's showing him kind of elite the passer he is of the basketball. You know, he put the basketball right under Ben. Now, that's what you're going to jump in the air? Let me just put it between your legs. We call that AKA a meg.
Jim, I think he was trying to kick the ball.
Yeah, Ben was trying to kick it, but to no avail.
Yeah.
James put it wide enough.
If you can't beat him, kick it. Let's check in now with Doc Rivers.
You would think it was the first time these two teams have saw each other this year, given the emotion out there. Just the level of intensity that was out there tonight by both teams and being able to get through it tonight.
Yeah, but there's a difference between intensity, playing with emotion, and being too emotional. And I thought, honestly, our side of it, we were on the wrong side of that a lot tonight. You know, and we'll take the win. You know, both teams are coming from a West Coast trip. You know, you didn't know how that was going to go. I thought both teams performed well. But that's a good test for us. We have to be better as far as handling our emotions in games like that. It's good to have emotion. You want to have intensity and emotion, but you don't want to be emotional. I thought we were a lot tonight.
Did you think Joel got too caught up in the Ben one-on-one?
No, I thought the team overall, not just the Ben. I just thought we got caught up in all the crap going on tonight. There's a lot of little chippiness, and that's good, but play above it, stay above it, keep playing. I didn't think we did that. And then I thought with several guys we were trying to draw fouls because, you know, Ben had the foul, so we tried to get that. A couple other guys had fouls. We were trying to draw fouls instead of just playing. And you'll get the fouls. That's how you got the fouls to begin with. So, but, you know, that's offense. I was frustrated. You know, it's funny. We shot 51%. I was so frustrated the way we played offensively. And then defense, we just allowed a team to shoot 64% and won the game. So there is a silver lining there.
What were the biggest issues defensively against them tonight?
We lost our discipline a lot. In the third quarter, those 8 points were were, I mean, it's funny. One of our coaches, this was our coach's heart attack game, just with the way we were executing defensively. But we won, and we'll take it.
You mentioned that the offense frustrated you. What about the offense frustrated you?
Just didn't get in a lot, slow to get in everything. Even when we tried to get in there, 3 guys got in it, 2 guys didn't. It was just, we've been so good offensively, and tonight was one of those nights. It was almost at one point I think it was the first half, we had 60 whatever points, and we had run bad offense. But it was coming so easy. It was hard to get your team to know, like, this is going to catch up to you at some point. I thought it did.
Well, it wasn't the prettiest game, and you talked about getting too emotional. Yeah. With the whole atmosphere in the building, though, tonight, did it feel like a playoff game to you?
Yeah, I don't even know what a playoff game feels like. You know what I mean? But it was intense, and our crowd was great. I thought we had a boxer's mentality crowd, which I think is good, but we have to handle that better.
If this ends up being a playoff matchup.
So Doc Rivers talking about the emotion. He said, listen, the fans were in it, but he wasn't as appreciative of his team being in that motion. He talked about the chippiness, kind of looking for those fouls instead of just playing and trying to get them that way. Can you get caught up too much in the emotion out there, especially when it's a rival and it's a team that you're very familiar with, especially after that big trade that happened last year, Mark?
Absolutely, Amy. Listen, what Doc said was very true. We as a player, you get caught up in those emotions sometimes, and it kind of gets you out of who you are or how you play to the best of your ability. Sometimes you have to kind of bring it down a little bit and put it in perspective. Just breathe and just go and play the game. Sometimes you look for fouls, you look for other stuff to kind of get yourself hype. And as a person, I found something to tick me off every game. Every now and then, Amy and Coach, I could kind of get low, cuckoo, when my emotions was running too high. So I agree with Coach.
Jim, as a coach, and you see your team is kind of getting that way, a little bit too amped up, a little bit too hyped up, looking for these fouls, kind of getting the extra chippiness. How can you calm them down? How can you kind of center them?
Yeah, sometimes that's not easy to do, Aim, and I couldn't agree more with Doc, what he said. You really strive as a coach to have your players play like with emotion, high energy, emotion, yes. But the second thing he said after it, you have to know how to channel it and how to utilize it to your advantage, not where it becomes detrimental and it costs you games.